Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Auburn Yoga and Pilates. Tonight we are going to do a yin and restorative practice. We're going to use the wall, and if you have a blanket or a pillow and maybe some blocks or something that you could use as blocks, it would probably be helpful. Thanks for joining us. Okay, let's get started. So we'll start in a comfortable seated position. Planting those sits bones and lengthening through the top of the head, inhaling through your nose all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth. And again, inhaling through your nose all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth. One more time, inhaling through your nose, all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth. Now try to maintain the depth of that breath, but turn it into a nostril breath. Let both your inhale and your exhale go through your nose. And seeing that today is Memorial Day, if you are watching this live, we are going to try to focus on a happy memory. So focus on whatever comes up first. When I said happy memory, what immediately landed in your head? And don't be judgmental. Just take what you get. Don't say, oh, that's silly. I can think of a different memory. And try to reflect on why this came up as a happy memory. What about it made it significant enough that it was the first thought that came into your head? How did you feel in this memory? And why did you feel that way? So in yoga, we generally try to stay in the present moment. But sometimes the act of reflecting on the past is helpful. Try to use this exercise today as one of those times where you can reflect in a helpful way. What can you learn? What can you take away from this positive memory? And just staying for 2 minutes in that place. Again, reflecting on how you feel, why you feel that way, and maybe is there a way that you can replicate that feeling or that experience in the present or the future? Deepening your breath, bringing yourself back into the room, switching the cross of your legs and circling your spine. So tonight we are doing yin and restorative, which I'm sure you know from the description. And we are going to use the wall. Thank you for the feedback on the last wall practice that we did. People seem to enjoy it, so I decided to come up with another one. The last one that we did at the wall was primarily hip focused. This is not simply focused on the hips. We've got some hips, but we've also got some twists, some thighs, and switch direction. So a hodgepodge tonight, in a good way. And finishing up that spinal circle. Now, taking yourself to a wall. Now, ideally, you'll end up sitting, just right on the floor with the back of your hips at the intersection of the floor and the wall. Sometimes you need to elevate your hips. It's helpful. So if it's helpful, then please do that. But you're going to try to use the wall to help you to keep your spine vertical. So we do have that natural curvature at our lumbar spine and at our cervical spine, and you want to honor that. So you want to make sure that you're not trying to press either your lower back or your cervical spine into the wall. However, you want to make a connection with those other places. Now, if you're like me, you may find that your back is touching the wall, but your head is pulling away from the wall. And sometimes we have that habit, inadvertently, of allowing our head to move forward. But obviously, ideally, you want to keep your head in natural alignment over your spine. So seeing if you can do that. The other thing that you want to think about is the placement of those legs. So some of you will prefer to keep your feet further away from your hips. Some of you in this variation are going to want to take your heels in more closely to your hips. And then some people it'll be fingertips, some people it'll be palms to the floor, pressing the heads of the shoulders back toward the wall, and holding this variation of Baddha Konasana. So generally when we do this pose, we're doing it away from the wall. Oftentimes we're folding forward. So just a little different focus today, where when we do this away from the wall and fold forward, it's likely that you feel a stretch in your back body, the back of your torso, and also your outer hips. Doing this today, hopefully you've gotten to a place where you feel a little bit more inner thigh, allowing those knees to press toward the floor. If you'd like, you can gently ease those legs down, never forcing. And then again, just that neutral alignment of the spine. What does it feel like? I would be willing to bet that it doesn't feel like a natural alignment of the spine to many of you. Which isn't to make a judgment. We're not here to make a judgment. We're just here to make an observation. So if this doesn't feel natural to you, what have you learned about the way that you stand or the way that you sit on a daily basis? Now, as most of you know, but if it's your first time practicing yin and restorative, you should know that we spend 3 to 5 minutes in most of these poses. So yin and restorative gives us the gift of time. We really have time to go deeply into a pose, whether that's a deep stretch, a deep relaxation, or a combination of both. It gives us the gift of being still. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make any movement at all. But overall, it's the gift of being quiet and still. And then slowly lengthening those legs and coming out of this pose. Now you are going to flip around and come into legs against the wall. So this is a nice restorative pose. So if possible, take the bottom of those hips right to the wall so that there's no space between the wall and your hips. However, if you have tight hamstrings, this isn't going to be possible. So if that's the case, take your hips a little bit further away from the wall. Your arms are by your side. Your palms are upward facing, just to facilitate the opening of the chest, the shoulders, just a little bit. So this pose should be calming and energizing at the same time. So the two are not mutually exclusive. Literally changing your orientation in this case. Bringing those feet up over the heart and the head. Mixes things up a bit. It should be invigorating in some ways for the legs. If you have leg fatigue or foot fatigue, and then at the same time, calming for that central nervous system. Now coming into a variation of this pose. Now you may need a prop for this next pose. If it's not comfortable, please grab something to place under your outside thigh. You're going to take your right leg and ideally you're going to bring it to the floor so that you have one leg horizontal and one leg vertical. However, if that is not comfortable, then place a prop under your outer hip, a block or a blanket or a pillow, to catch your leg so that then the range of motion isn't quite as large. Now, chances are your left hip, the back of your left hip, has lifted up off of the floor. That is okay. That's going to happen. You're allowing the back of the left hip to relax down toward the floor, acknowledging that it probably isn't going to get there. You'd have to, be a contortionist of some type to be able to get the back of that hip completely to the floor. But you're dropping it in that direction. So you should be getting a stretch through the inner thigh, through the groin of the right leg, possibly through the hamstring of the left leg if you have tight hamstrings. But again, that idea of finding more and more space while you're here. So you don't want the pose to be painful. If it's painful, you definitely want to modify, grab that prop, boost that leg up. However, sometimes there are opportunities to sort of explore the edge. And that is just simply, finding that place where it starts to begin to feel a little bit challenging for us. And sort of see how it feels if we explore that space. Sometimes we need to come out of it. But sometimes that we find that if we simply give it a little bit of time, literally, that we get more comfortable there. And then slowly lifting that right leg up. Hopefully you can feel the difference through the hip and the thigh on that leg. And then doing the same thing on the left side, allowing that left leg, maybe it goes all the way to the floor. Maybe you're using a prop to catch it. The back of the right hip has lifted up off of the floor, but you're allowing gravity to take over your hip and allow it to drop toward the floor. and slowly lifting that leg back up to center. Now, from here, you may need to let those hips press away from the wall. I will likely have to move my hips away from the wall because I have tight hips. You can definitely try keeping the hips at the wall and seeing how that goes. Now, taking that right leg, crossing it over and making a figure 4. You want to flex that inside foot and you want to start to bend the left leg. So right leg crossed, relatively close to your torso. You want to find a place where you feel like you're getting a deep opening through that outer hip and thigh. It's going to be tempting to allow this foot to go into more of a neutral position. But if possible, you want to try to keep this foot flexed, and especially think about taking that pinky toe, directing it back toward the knee. That will help keep the hip activated. It'll help also to protect the knee in this stretch. So hip openers are very beneficial to us because they help our knees and they help our back. It's all connected. So this is why we do so many hip openers in our yoga practice. Now, again, admittedly, I have very tight hips. This is probably about as far as I'm going, but many of you will be able to fold up much more than I am. And lengthening the leg that's a little further away, and then lengthening the leg that's closer. You may want to windshield wiper those legs and just let them move from side to side. And then trying the other side. So same thing, letting that leg go into external rotation, flexing that foot, pulling that pinky toe back, coming into some form of a figure 4 stretch. And again, remember, in addition to how much you bend the leg that's at the wall and how much you externally rotate that inside leg, you can also adjust how far away your hips are from the wall. Making those micro movements as time goes on to get yourself into a very deep but manageable stretch. And then lengthening the leg closer to the wall, lengthening the leg that was closer to the torso, shaking it out, and rolling to one side, lifting yourself up. Okay, so continuing to use the wall, we're going to come into a seated position, and we're going to come into a wide-legged position. Now, you want to basically keep scooting yourself closer to the wall until you feel like you're getting a stretch through your inner thighs. So where my hips, personally, are fairly tight, my inner thighs and hamstrings tend to be fairly flexible. So I recognize that I'm closer to the wall than you may be able to get. But keep creeping forward. And then lean into the wall for a nice inner thigh stretch while you're there. Now, the option is that if you have a bolster or maybe a sofa cushion of some type or a very firm pillow, you could use that to rest on instead of the wall if you feel like that is a more comfortable option for you. So hopefully you have your feet positioned at the wall in a way that the wall is preventing your feet from internally rotating, and it's preventing your knee from internally rotating. You want to keep those legs in a neutral position. You want the knees pointing upward while you're here. And hopefully you notice that regardless of where you are as far as proximity to the wall, that even a slight lean forward does change this pose quite a bit. And slowly coming away from the wall. Wiggling those hips back until you're able to swing those legs around. So now, as promised, I promised you a twist. You probably wonder, where is this twist? Now, the tricky part of the twist is to try to determine how far away from the wall you need to be. I am going to guess that I need to be here, although I'm going to admit I may need to adjust. What we're going to do is bring our feet to the wall. So for me, I'm going to need to wiggle a little further away. Now, you can go as low as your legs parallel to the floor and your spine at a 90-degree angle to your legs. That may be way too intensive a twist for some of you. If that's the case, you're going to get closer to the wall and you're not going to drop the legs quite so low. So you can definitely customize this twist, but you're trying to find a place where you can get a deep twist. So you're using the wall to help you stay in place. And you can energetically press your feet into the wall. And although the wall isn't really pressing back, that energetic force that's created when you connect to the wall almost makes it feel like it is. People who are fairly flexible may be able to make an angle less than 90 degrees at their hip. Meaning that maybe your legs end up slightly diagonal to your torso. Ideally, those palms are upward facing. And then slowly bringing those legs up, bringing those knees into your chest. And, of course, switching sides. So hopefully you feel a wee bit uneven, like you need to even yourself out. And what happened on one side may or may not be what happens on the other side. So you may need to press yourself further from the wall or bring yourself closer to the wall. And depending on the intensity of your twist, you may find that your lower foot reaches the wall more easily than your upper foot. And that happens because of the placement of the hips. Chances are, the way that I'm facing, the left side of my hips is further back than the right side of my hips. So maybe once you're here, depending on where you are, you can try to bring your hips into slightly more of a stacked position. Now that's going to involve a fairly deep twist. If your legs are further up the wall, that's not something that you want to try tonight. And then gently pulling those legs away from the wall, bringing those knees into your chest, circling those knees, and then switching the direction of your circle. And then grounding your feet and placing them flat on your mat. And taking those feet out to the edges of your mat. And allow your legs to windshield wiper back and forth to one side. Release the hips, the thighs. Release the back. And then bringing those feet back in, bringing yourself into a place for final relaxation. It seems like it's just meant to be that I put the bolster under my feet tonight. So as we always mention, placing a prop under your feet, under your knees, under your back, under your head, all options. Final relaxation is about finding that place where you can completely relax. Exhaling, allowing your arms and your legs to be heavy and collapse into your mat. And beginning to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Once again, grounding those feet. Rolling to one side and coming up into a seated position. Moving through a few seated cats and cows. Holding that spine nice and long. Inhale, sweep those arms up. Exhale those hands down. The light within me salutes the light within you. Namaste. Thank you for tuning in. Please comment, like, and share, and gratitude to those of you who already have. I hope all is well and hope to see you in person soon. Take care.